Take a look at this keyboard. This is the original Topra based HHKB Pro 1 that I've used for multiple years, and this is a different keyboard, but it has the exact same layout. And this is a layout that I've praised multiple times on this channel because I love using it and I always come back to it in the end. But recently, I discovered something which made me realize that this layout is incomplete, and the same goes for every other layout that I've used in the past as well, because they all have the same fundamental issue. They underutilize the thumb fingers. So essentially, I watched a few videos by Seto Koji as he went into the keyboard rabbit hole himself, where he tried out various different layouts starting from the common ones to the Alice layout and so on, but in the end, he ended up settling on the HHKB. But to be more specific, the HHKB Studio, and the main reason why were these 3 mouse keys under the spacebar. But he didn't use them as mouse keys. Instead, he mapped them into keyboard functions, such as the function key, an extra shift key, a Japanese language toggle key, and this is where that realization hit me. Holy shit, this could be so incredibly useful for myself as well, I thought. For example, if I could hit the function key with my thumb, I could use arrow keys and so on entirely with my left hand, which would save me from having to constantly move my right hand back and forth between the mouse and the keyboard whilst editing videos and so on. So a few days later, I went to a shop in Japan called Yushakobo, where I was able to try a ton of different keyboards with various different layouts, including the HHKB Studio, and indeed, ergonomically, it was really nice to use the thumb keys under the spacebar, but the reason I didn't buy it just yet was because I really wasn't the biggest fan of its build quality considering its price, but also because there was another option that kind of caught my interest as well, namely the 7S Pro, which has an HHKB layout, but the spacebar on the bottom row is split into multiple different keys, which could potentially achieve the same effect, and it's also a split keyboard. Which, to be honest, I don't really care about that much, but I actually didn't buy that one either at first, and the reason why was because it was a carbon fiber based DIY kit, and even if I bought it, it would still be missing the switches, the keycaps, it wouldn't even be wireless, and it cost $115, and if you want to make it wireless, it's going to cost you another $50 to $100 on top of the original price. So after like 2 hours of contemplating, I left the shop without buying anything. However, a few days later, I decided that, okay, I'm going to go back to Tokyo and visit that shop again to buy that keyboard just as an experiment, because once I leave Japan, I cannot get my hands on it anymore. And so, after a 2-hour train ride, I arrived at the shop and bought the non-wireless kit for it. And now, nearly 2 months later, it's finally time to build it and see how it goes. I'd say that my biggest concern right now is that maybe the split spacebar isn't going to be as nice to use as the extra keys under the spacebar on the HHKB Studio, for example. And now that I'm pretty used to a 2.4 GHz wireless keyboard, I'm not really sure if I want to go back to wired or Bluetooth based keyboards due to the small delay they have, but I guess the only way to find out is just to build it and try daily driving it for a while, so let's get started. Okay, these are all the parts for the build. Oh, also, actually when I bought it, these 2 pieces inside this packaging were connected, but since I put it into my coat pocket, they kinda snapped off, and I'm a bit worried that maybe they got damaged. Oh fuck, it actually might be broken. So it was connected like this inside the packaging before, but it broke, and if you look closely, you can see that one of the threads is snapped off. I've fixed similar damage before, but since this wire seems to be connected to this pad here, which you're supposed to cut off anyway, I hope that it's fine. This is genuinely concerning though. I'm really worried about that broken wire, it's like dampening my mood. But anyway, I have an option to make these sides black with the marker right now. I wonder if it's actually cooler if the sides are left untreated. Okay, I'll just as an experiment, I'll try on a different plate. Oh, by the way, this is a marker that I brought home with me from Japan because I thought that maybe I'll need it for something here. Okay, next I have to solder the status indicator LED here. Oh my god, it's so tiny. Okay, it's in the hole. And this is an absolutely terrible soldering iron because it doesn't have any controls or anything. But this is the one that I desoldered and resoldered an entire poker tree with, as well as made my entire hand-wired keyboard, so I hope that this is going to be good enough. Okay, this area might look big on the video, but in real life I can barely see, for example, this gap here. I wish I could like zoom in my eyes. No. Okay, I hope that this is good enough. Okay, next I have to install this Pro Micro. I actually have an Arduino Pro Micro at home as well that I bought like 10 years ago for my hand-wired kit, but because the programming of the Arduino Pro Micro is different from a Teensy, I just like bought a Teensy clone instead. Wait, there's 4 of these. Oh, I guess these are just too big. Okay, let's drop it into the PCB. Oh man, that is satisfying. When I push it in, the sound is so satisfying. Oh. Okay, and now I'm supposed to solder this. Wait, I put it on the wrong side. God damn it. Can I even remove it? Okay. No! Oh my god. Okay, I was able to... Oh! Jesus. Okay, and now it's time to solder all of these tiny pins. And just to put it into perspective, my soldering iron is much fatter than a single pin, so this is going to be really difficult. But I've done it before, so I'll do it again. I'm not even looking with my own eyes, I'm looking at the camera monitor on a different display. Okay, these cones don't look very pretty, but hopefully they're good enough. But to make sure it's good enough, next I need to connect it to my PC. Oh nice, this is USB-C, not USB micro. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, something's... There's a red light. I'm supposed to flash the firmware now, but this written tutorial is pretty nicely written. So basically, I didn't need these Pro Micro included pins. So what it says here is that once you open the package, immediately throw away those included pins. And if you think that's wasteful, then if you can't come up with a way to use them in 3 seconds, then you have to throw them away. And I guess I can't really come up with any better way to use them myself as well. I wonder if someone in the comments can come up with a way to use them. But anyway, I need to flash the firmware, and it seems that I can do this online. So let's see. Man. Nowadays this is so easy, like, this is a keyboard that I hand-wired myself in like 2015, and to get the firmware on it, I had to modify C code, then compile it and flash it through the terminal. But nowadays you can just hit flash online, you don't even have to download anything. Ooh. There's a red light glowing, this is the LED that I installed. Nice. Wait, technically speaking, because I already have the firmware flashed, if I insert a switch here, should it already work? Okay, let's see. I'm gonna put an ancient Gator and Brown switch here. And now, technically this should do something. Okay. Okay, basically we're done. Okay, next I have to install this small button, as well as this 3.5mm audio jack, so we could play music from our keyboard. Oh wait, there's a small gap between the audio jack and the PCB because I didn't use tape to push it down and just push it with my finger. I don't think that's gonna work though. Eat that! Man, this is bad. I guess I have to get the solder sucker. Okay, I don't know where my solder sucker is. Okay, this might actually turn into a problem then. Can I really not just push it down somehow? Okay, this is the other plate, which I haven't soldered yet, and indeed it's supposed to be... There's like a small clip here that sits into the board perfectly. So... where's my solder sucker, man? Okay, maybe I can just remove it without the solder sucker. Okay, I got it loose. I was basically just hitting these contact points whilst pulling really hard on this socket, and I pulled too hard and it ripped the skin. The question is though, can I even put it back here, because now it's covered in solder? Man, this is actually impossible without the solder sucker, but I don't know what it is. Okay, I don't have the solder sucker because somebody borrowed it, so I cannot finish this part today.
A few moments later.
I'm a fucking genius. Okay, time for this again, but on the other side. Okay, this result ain't too bad. All the soldering should be done. So, now my question is, if I just get a TRS cable and connect both of the sides. Wait, I don't think I'm supposed to... I'll disconnect them first. Nanikore. Oh my god, this cable doesn't go in. Maybe like one of the pins is bent inside the socket, so it doesn't want to go in. Okay, I just used violence. Okay, let's plug it in and see what happens now. Okay, okay, now the W isn't working. Okay, luckily that's related to the fact that it's connected. For whatever reason, if I remove this Pro Micro from the PCB here, it connects without issues. But if I put it back to the PCB here and try to connect it, nothing happens. It doesn't do the boom sound or anything. Could it really be that already because of this wire being a bit loose, it doesn't work? Oh wait. I have it connected to this hole and the back hole is free, but it should be the other way around. Please let this be the issue. Okay, let's connect it now. Reggie, please say boop boop. Oh, okay. Now, let me fucking zoom this shit out. Let me try a random switch here. Okay, please do something. Yes, okay, okay. Now, the question is, do they both work if I connect them? Oh, now you don't want to go in. Come on. Okay, the other cable goes in. For some reason, it says to not remove or connect this cable when the keyboard is connected, because it might damage the controllers. Not really sure why, but... Okay, please. Whoop. Now, this should do a W. W? This should do an O. Ooh, ovo! Okay, everything works. I don't... I kind of wish this wasn't a split keyboard. Now, I had this concern over the broken wire here, but it doesn't seem to be connected to anything. Because I mean, it's connected to the part that was supposed to be clipped off anyway. So I'm hoping that this is just a dead wire. What should I do? Should I add all the switches to test them all out? Or just finish the entire keyboard build? Fuck it, let's finish it. I wanna eat something, I'm so hungry. But I can't eat because I'm using my bowl as a soldering iron holder. Now it's time to connect the stabilizers, but the issue is that I don't have any loop for these stabilizers though. Okay, I don't have any band-aids, so maybe electrical tape will do it. Oh my god. Does it really take that much pressure? Whoa. This was already broken. Why is everything so scuffed in here? Jesus, it takes so much force, man. Okay, next. It's time for the top plate. Jesus, I have some solder stuck to it. Okay, it's actually completely stuck here, so I guess I need to heat up the soldering iron again. I haven't eaten all day. How I'm gonna do this, man? I'd really like some soup. Is it still not hot enough? Is it? Ah! Okay, it's hot enough. Okay, next I have to start putting these screws in here. Where'd it go? Okay, this plate is done. I'm a fucking... From the guard's whip! Is this a trick? Okay, I'm done with this. Okay, nothing interesting happened in between, but I have assembled the keyboard. Not sure why the bottom plate is such a different color on those, but okay, it's obviously looking really bare bones, but the benefit of this is that this should be a really light keyboard. This cable looks pretty goofy, but I can do this as well. Okay, now I have to decide on the switches and the keycaps. For the switches, I think I know what I'm going to go with. Remember these? These are the switches that I bought like 2 years ago, but they didn't fit into the plate of my hand-wired keyboard, so I never got to try them. This incredibly wasteful plastic tray. I mean, they could make it at least a little bit more compact if they want to use the plastic, but at least it's still not as bad as plastic in Japanese combis. But I'm pretty sure there aren't enough switches here, so I think I'm going to make all the keys that I don't want to require a lot of pressure into the Akko switches. Okay, they fit into this, oh man. I was getting a bit worried that they won't fit into this plate either. Wait, I forgot to add a stabilizer here. And I have to remove all the switches to open this plate. Okay, my camera has been running for over 5 hours and I've been standing the entire time. And I feel like I need to eat something or I'm gonna pass out, so I'll just take everything apart off camera, I guess, whilst doing sentence mining or something. But little did I know, this small setback was about to turn into a tragedy of the maximum scale.
Oh, this is a tragedy. This is a tragedy of the maximum scale.
You see, after I was done with recording, I turned off the camera and pulled out the SD card as usual to check the footage. But when I plugged it into my computer, instead of an MP4, I was met with a 122GB RSV file. And it was exactly what I feared. Essentially, because the recording was over 5 hours long, it wasn't done processing by the time I pulled out the card, so the footage ended up becoming corrupt. And after 2 days of trying to recover it with open source and free software, long story short, I had to give money to a company with rather questionable ethics in order to get my clip back, so I mean, I guess the only lesson here is that if the clip is very long, you just have to wait a bit longer. But while you're waiting, you can do much better lessons at Brilliant.org, and Brilliant is also the sponsor of this video. So essentially, Brilliant is a platform where you can learn a bunch of different subjects in a pretty unique, interactive manner, which also makes it pretty fun and therefore easy to stay consistent with. And consistency is something that I personally find to be the most important thing when it comes to learning anything. Brilliant can help you get smarter every day with thousands of lessons in topics such as math, science, programming, data, AI, and so on, and those lessons are designed in an interactive, visual manner which can help you more intuitively understand how the concepts work. And I feel like this would have been perfect for me back when I was learning AI, because in the process I also had to get more familiar with linear algebra, calculus, and so on. The lessons are also in a format that makes it easy to learn wherever and whenever, because you can also do them on the mobile app, which also makes it a perfect replacement for mindless scrolling when commuting and so on. So if learning on Brilliant seems to be something that you'd be interested in, you can click my link brilliant.org/Livakivi in the description to learn more and to also get a 30-day free trial as well as a 20% discount on the annual subscription. But anyway, after that, I took apart the entire keyboard, added the stabilizers and put everything back together, and then I needed some keycaps. But since I only had a few leftover keys from an old keycap set, I had to steal them from donor boards like this old broken QWERTY Razer keyboard that I was given for free at one point, and I actually ended up yapping for another 3 hours here as I cleaned the keycaps and decided which keys to put where and so on, but I think I'll just skip to the conclusion, so... Okay. I've been using this keyboard for around an entire month now, and I think I've finally come to a conclusion on whether or not I recommend this split bottom row layout. But before I talk about that, I'll quickly go over the rest of the keyboard as well. So when it comes to the typing experience, I actually quite like these lightweight linears, and since I didn't have enough of them, some of the other keys such as this one and the enter and so on are Gator and Browns. But overall, it feels pretty clacky and satisfying, so... So that's what it sounds like. Now, when it comes to these keycaps, I mean, I like them. I've been using textured, dry feeling PBT keycaps for so long that suddenly going back to the cheapest possible ABS keycaps, which are like already as shiny as they get, it actually feels like a new experience. But anyway, another thing I was worried about was that this keyboard is not wireless. And while of course it will definitely be nice to get rid of all the cables dangling on my desk, at the same time I surprisingly care about it much less than I expected, and I assume that one of the reasons why is because I have this magnetic cable which makes it really easy to connect and disconnect the wired connection. And overall, when it comes to the keyboard itself, I mean, it is pretty bare, but oh my. But at the same time, it's nice and low profile, and it's really lightweight, which I really like because I always adjust the position of my keyboard. In fact, I even put these felt pads under the keyboard to make it slide even more. However, when I'm typing, the keyboard never slides, so this keyboard being lightweight and slippery only has practical upsides for me. But some of you have probably already noticed that this keyboard is no longer a split keyboard, and that's because I put a piece of tape on the bottom to keep both of the sides together, and the reason why is because this is where the keyboard splits. So the Y key is on the right side and the T key is on the left side. But I hit the Y key with my left hand, so when typing or doing work, I hit keys on the right side with my left hand. So when it splits apart or is slightly misaligned, it makes typing and doing work really awkward, so really don't need it to be a split keyboard. But speaking of work, now I want to talk about the layout as well as the split spacebar. So my expectation was that because when I'm typing or using the keyboard with my left hand, I only hit mostly the corners of the spacebar, so I don't need it to take up so much space, and I could easily put an extra 2 keys in the middle here. But the moment I started using this keyboard, I realized that subconsciously I had actually been using 100% of the spacebar the entire time. So for example, when I'm editing videos, my left hand wanders to the middle of the spacebar when I'm hitting keys around here, and depending on what I'm typing, sometimes my thumb does get pretty close to the center as well. So even though I'm pretty much used to just hitting these 2 keys for the spacebar by now, at the same time it occasionally does force me to hit the spacebar in a slightly less ergonomic position. However, in return, I got these 2 extra keys, and this one is an extra function key, or rather a layer key, and this is just a duplicate alt key. And this extra layer key was what I wanted the most, because I imagined that it would let me do so much more with just my left hand as I'm using the mouse with my right hand. And that expectation ended up becoming completely true. For example, now with only my left hand, I can use the arrow keys, I have an extra delete key, an extra backspace, and enter key, extra macro keys, and so on. And if you combine those keys with modifier keys as well, you can pretty much map anything here, and it's going to be pretty ergonomical. If you want, you can even hit both of these keys at once with one thumb. You can even map a whole numpad here if you want to. However, in reality, it is not as ideal of an experience as I'd like it to be. Very often, when I'm doing some kind of work and want to hit, for example, the arrow keys, what ends up happening is that I end up hitting the wrong key, because it's really hard to tell where exactly your hand is. So essentially, if you look at the spacebar, you can tell that it has a slightly different shape compared to the rest of the keys. So this is convex and this is concave. And thanks to this difference in shape, you can tell pretty easily that your finger is on the spacebar, not the alt key, for example. And if you slide your finger across the long ass spacebar, it's going to end up on the alt. So there is no room for failure. However, when it comes to this setup, first of all, these additional modifier keys are the same shape as the existing modifier keys. But even if they're flipped, it is really hard to tell which key my thumb is currently on. So essentially what ends up happening is that, let's say I want to hit the arrow keys, well, there's a high chance that I'm just going to hit Alt or the spacebar instead of the function key, and then I'm going to start misinputting, which ends up being really annoying. So what I did is I flipped this key separately as well, so it would be a little bit easier to tell where the function key is. But despite having used it for a month, very often it's still pretty hard to tell. Not only that, but I almost never use this alt key anymore. With the long spacebar, I always use this alt key to hold tab or just do alt actions and so on. But it is so annoying to use this alt key because it's so hard to tell where your finger is that I just remapped it here, which is pretty ergonomical, but that also means that sometimes I end up hitting the function key instead of the alt key again. So essentially the point is that despite having used this keyboard for a month already, I still make mistakes quite often. And the sad part is that if I know that there's a chance that I'm going to mess up, then sometimes it's just easier to move my mouse hand to the keyboard to just use the function key here and hit the arrow keys here instead. So while I don't really miss the long spacebar, now more than ever I'm really curious about the HHKB Studio, because instead of having split keys over here, it has the same long spacebar but 3 extra keys under the spacebar. And if I try to imagine what it would be like, then hitting a key under the spacebar seems so easy. The room for error feels like it would be 0. So there's a chance that with the HHKB Studio, I would get all the benefits of the split spacebar with none of the downsides. But it's impossible to tell without actually daily driving it. But the only issue is that it's really hard to get in the EU. So there is a chance that I could get a review unit that I could try out, but that would also mean that I would have to like sacrifice 1 to 2 different videos that I could make with the same time instead. But at the same time, I am pretty curious, so I don't know, maybe I'll reach out to them. And if you're interested in seeing the follow-up to this adventure, then maybe you can subscribe to see how it goes, in case I actually end up getting the studio, that is. But anyway, that's it for this video, and I'm actually curious to know how many of you have done something similar with extra thumb keys, whether it be in the same style as this, or if you already have the studio, or something completely different. So definitely do let me know, and I'll see you in some next video.